Well, this is a bit different. Not only is it not a CB radio, it is not an HMV either. I've been doing the circuit out of Radio and Television Servicing 1969-1970, and it's a GEC G987 stereogram. It doesn't have a radio, so it just has a record player. And according to the service manual here, fully transistorized stereo record player incorporating a 4-speed automatic record changer, fitted with a BSR UA65 with a C1 ceramic cartridge and a diamond stylus in the LP position. 2 long throw speakers and 2 tweeters are housed in airtight enclosures. These enclosures are removable from the main cabinet for spacing further apart, and you get leads to do that. Additional speakers must not be connected. Right, so this came off eBay. Oh, it's come with somebody's USB lead here. If the vendor sees this from eBay, they can have that back in the post. So, yes, this came from eBay, and many years ago when I had a shop in Yorkshire, we had one of these come in, probably about 1981. And I didn't work on it, but I did hear it in the workshop on test, and it was very good. When you look at the circuit diagram, the amplifier, which is solid state, uses the AD161162 complementary pair, just like that Ultra record player I did the other week, and the same as the HMV Stereomaster 2040. So it's the same kind of output arrangement, and with the tweeters in those cabinets, it should be quite decent. Now, these just unhook like that, and they have studs in the back, studs there, and the fact that these are kind of, the weight of these is such, and the weight it dangles onto them gives you a good electrical contact. As I said, they have a socket in the back which is 2 pinned in, and you can extend those and put them where you want in your living room. So what we're going to do is start with the turntable as usual, and I must say I haven't worked on one of these ever before. My training's with HMV, we've got the service information, there shouldn't be any snags, and I reckon we'll have all the parts in stock. So here goes. I don't know what you think to that, folks, but that mains plug is so filthy. I think we're going to cut it off and put a new one on. Usual thing. The turntable is seized, which is what we come to expect, and such that the mechanism wouldn't allow the tone arm to go into its rest position, which we have to be careful in transportation. It comes with the manual spindle, which is great. That's still in place in its little clip, and hopefully we can just twist this and it'll come out. Well, obviously we're not going to do that on camera. It's seized. Now, I didn't need to use any heat on that. I just put a cloth round it, got the pliers, and I was able to twist and pull. But the reason is this grease is all yuck. So remove this centre decal, and that will reveal the circlip. You can usually do these with a small screwdriver. And the turntable platter should lift off. And you've seen me before, sometimes they don't, and we just pop a soldering iron down there and just release it. Now I'm going to do that right now because we've got that situation, it just won't quite lift off. So I'll just leave that down there for 5 minutes and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so I've removed the soldering iron after 5 minutes, and hopefully, yes, that's lifted off. It's the metal platter. Some of the cheaper BSR turntables have the plastic type, which you wouldn't want to try and melt. I expect that's pretty seized. We'll pop that off. That is the cycle cam, and it's halfway through its cycle. So that circlips off that. And again, this should lift off, and it is doing. Sometimes we have to apply heat from a heat gun. As you can see, this is all gummed up. with the nasty toffee grease, which we'll remove. And I've said before, we don't replace that with grease, we replace it with thin household oil. And hopefully there's one lurking, but no, there isn't. So I'll do that in a moment. When I did the training course at HMV, the same applied to BSR and Garrard decks, because very similar kind of mechanism arrangements. And even back then, in the late 70s, they were saying put oil on instead of grease. We don't know why they put grease on. You don't need to put grease on, and it just gums up, and it was gumming up even then. But they carried on making them and putting the grease on. Whilst we're stripping it down, there's the idler. So we'll take the circlip off that. There's a fibre washer, and there's a fibre washer underneath. So just get that out as well. So we've got the two fibre washers and the idler. So we'll clean all this up with isopropyl alcohol. Okay, so back on to the next day, and we've had these parts through the company dishwasher. We've had the platter, which is nice and shiny now. The whole of the auto cycle thing I've put through. Now what I'm going to do in front of you is to sort out this auto stop trigger. So just pop the circlip off that. Sometimes, a lot of the time, these play up, and what happens is you're playing a record and the arm moves across and it gets to a point and it won't go any further, and so it just goes bup 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 bup, and it just jumps, and that's because of some friction. The friction is this, and these need to be as free as anything. Now at the time they said don't lubricate these. If they don't play up, we don't lubricate them, but sometimes we do have to pop a bit of oil in between. But what I do lubricate is the actual thing it's fitted to. So what I just will do, sometimes we can just put there we are, that's all we need. Just drop of oil on there, put that back together, and the circlip back on. I've done it by hand, look at that. Now the other thing we do is, instead of using grease, even at the time in the 70s, when I did the training course at HMV, they said don't put grease on, just use light oil, and that's what we'll just do. Just run around some light oil, and that hopefully I'll just bump into the camcorder. So I'm just going to get a bit of kitchen roll, which is there, and we'll just clean off. Let's move that. Actually, I'll just clean these off. Most of this has been done whilst your camera's been off. And you can see some of the muck coming off that. So again, we'll just put some oil on the paper and put that onto that and onto the auto mechanism thing there. I suppose you call that the drive dog. And then if you remember, I took the bearing washer off. Just get rid of some of the sticky grease and just put some light machine oil on that. And the same applies down the centre spindle. There is some mechanism down there. There we go. And the fun part is putting this back on. sometimes it goes together, and sometimes you have to put a piece of string in to just pull that inwards slightly. So we'll see what happens on this particular one. My experiences are a bit 50-50. So is this one going to go together? No, I don't think it is. No. So it's the bit of string. So I'll just pause the camera while we get that ready, and I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm up to. So I've got, actually, you can use string, you can use a bit of wire. I'll just loop that round there, and I'll just pull that in slightly, and then we'll put that back on. It's gone straight in this time. I can pull my bit of wire out, push that down, and pop the circlip back on, which we haven't lost. There we go. So that's the auto cycle all put back together. Now we'll deal with the idler. The idler's being cleaned. I stuck that through the dishwasher as well. And I'm just going to put some isopropyl alcohol on a bit of kitchen paper. We'll just run round that, just to make sure absolutely. And before I put that back on, I'm going to stage it out here. Bit of oil on there, and onto that there. So we've got some lubrication. That's the first of the fibre washers, the idler, the second fibre washer, and the circlip. Well, we'll just pause the video while I find the circlip. And the other thing, we just need to make sure that motor spindle's clean. It's 4 steps on the motor spindle, a synchronous motor underneath, because it's a 4-speed deck. So there we are, that's everything on the top side done. Now there are some lubrication points underneath, and somebody mentioned to me, you never talk about these. Well, I don't. They don't always play up. We always make sure there's just a smearing of oil on there, but underneath we've got to ensure that the tone arm is quite free to move on its own bearing. It's not difficult to work out what needs lubrication underneath. I will just move my little screw tin off, and I'll show you. And the other thing we've been doing whilst the camera was off, if I just move it round, I've been doing the control panel there, and not surprisingly 2 of these caps have come off, so we'll just glue those on. I use Bostik number 2 adhesive for those, but it's all nice and clean now. So I'm just going to lift up the motor board, which I've taken the screws out earlier. Make sure that's locked. What you'll also see is that the wiring is already in for the optional tuner. So you've got the power connectors and the DIN and everything, because you can either buy this as a radiogram or later fit the radio section on the left hand side. So I'll just put the camera in a different position, and then I'll talk to you about this lubrication underneath. Right, well, these are the points on this turntable. I'm using the service manual, and this is for the UA70 series. And what they want you to use grease on, and I agree with them on the grease on this, is on the speed change thing just there. There's 2 plastic items, so it's plastic against plastic, and I agree with that. They want you to put grease on this plate, which is fair enough. And then they want you to put grease. We'll just move the camera back down again. on the teeth of that, which I disagree with, and they want you to put grease on this idler arm, and I would prefer to use oil. But that's them and me, and I suppose they knew what they were doing when they made them, but on the other hand, I'm looking at them 45 years later. So that's the first set of lubrication points underneath. I'll pause the camera and lift it back up again. And what they want you to do the oiling on, I showed you the bearing on the other side, we did that, and they want you to make sure that the pivot there for the tone arm is oiled. They haven't mentioned this for the overarm, but I always make sure that's got some lubrication. And then of course they want you to make sure the upper and the lower bearings have got lubrication on the motor. Now I've just taken the stylus out of this, which is there, and it's an ST4. I think we put ST14s in because I want it to be LP, whereas this is LP78. And then with the stylus microscope, these are readily available for about $5.99 off eBay and other places. I am just going to look and see what I think to this stylus. Well, it's bent, and it's bent in several ways. If I hold that thing, it's kind of down on an angle there, and the end is also bent. The 78 end of it looks okay, and the LP looks pretty poorly. So what I will be doing, I mean, put that away, is we'll be putting a new stylus in right here and now, because I'm not risking any of my records on a stylus in that kind of state. So it's an ST4, and I will just fit the new one. So here's a new one, eBay $6.99, and it says fits ST12, 14 and 15 for LP/LP. So if I can actually get in the box, and pop that in at the back. Of course I can't do it when it's running the video, can I? So there we are with it fitted in position, and it's a turnover LP for LP, which is what I want. And of course if you want to play 78 you will need to put the ST4 in as was originally specified. Right, so we're ready to try the turntable. We haven't done the amplifier, so I don't want to power it up with the amplifier connected. So I need to disconnect the amplifier. So you've got a double-sided printed circuit board, typical of GEC products at the time. Nice large mains transformer. In fact, the board's plug-in, which is, there you are, it's on a steel chassis, which is unbelievable. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to disconnect the secondary of the transformer, or something like that, so that the thing can't work. And having never seen one of these before, I'll tell you what, it's going to be easy to pop off one of the primary connections. I'm just going to disconnect that primary connection with the soldering iron and just tape over the wire so it doesn't go short-circuiting all over the place. I'll just go and do that. Right, so I'll put the platter back on, but I haven't put the trim or the circlip back in. Now I'm just going to get the Stylus pressure gauge out and just see what the tracking pressure is. It wants to be somewhere under 4 grams. Hopefully about 2.5. Oh, well, it's more than 20. Right, well, that's no good to us at all, so we better adjust that. So on this model, there's a grub screw there, and anti-clockwise reduces the stylus pressure and clockwise increases the stylus pressure. So it was greater than 20, and to be honest the lowest it really wants to be is 5. So there we are at 5. Well, that's certainly better than how it was. And of course you'll probably be aware a lot of these cheap record players that are on the current market do more than 20 grams, which doesn't help your record collection at all. So that's fair enough. And so we'll lift that record and we will see, switch it on, what happens. Now it's not quite dropped in the correct place, so that's another adjustment to make. So I'll just reject it. On this turntable, it's the adjustment there, and I recall it's clockwise for slightly less on the record. So let's try that again. That's spot on. Obviously you can't hear the record, the amplifier's disconnected. And I'm just going to move the, oh, it's got a queuing lever on this. Just make sure it takes off in the correct place. So I'll just put the record on near the end, and whilst that's coming to the end, you'll notice there's a anti-skate control at the back, and that should correspond to the tracking pressure. So we need to set that to somewhere between 4 and 5 to match that tracking pressure off 5. So here we come to the end. Right, there you have it, the GEC G987, and that's the turntable now serviced. So next video will be changing the 25 capacitors that need changing on the amplifier. Some of them aren't that easy to get because preferred values have changed over the years, certainly since 1969 when this was made, and I'm currently importing 6 of the parts from the United States. So we'll kind of do it at the weekend, but we might not be able to change all of them because they won't have all come through by then. So thank you for watching. I hope you found something a bit different because, as you know, we normally do HMV products when we're not doing CB radios. So there you go. Thank you.